Hey you guys, so this live stream was really awesome. I was able to get my mother to jump in on it with me, and I'm really excited because she's been studying what I've been studying for much longer than I have, and so it's really great to be able to bounce things back and forth off her and have her comment and share her wisdom and her research that she's done. So we talked about boundaries and codependency and what are boundaries and a way to visualize them and be able to understand what they are. And this was just a great podcast that I really enjoyed, and I can't wait to jump into it some more. Whether it's next week or whether it's down the line, I would love to do a few more podcasts on boundaries and really jumping into it because it's such an important subject when it comes to self-worth and living healthfully and this and that. So I'm really excited to share this with you guys, and I hope you love it. Anyways, let's jump into it right now.
I would be typewriter grammar. Grandma.
Oh my gosh.
Grandma.
All right,
Grandma.
so we are now recording. You can say hi to the podcast if you want, Mom.
Hey, podcast.
But okay, so today's topic is boundaries. Boundaries is something that, Mom, you and I have been. How long have you been studying it?
Oh goodness. I don't know. Last maybe 4 years or something.
Wow.
Maybe
okay.
it's 5 years. I don't.
Yeah,
remember.
I remember you started reading it to us probably 3 years ago or something like that.
Okay.
But we've been studying live stream. Sorry, people are saying the live stream. It's laggy. Hi. Oh, you're so cute. Thank you. So we've collectively been studying boundaries for quite a while. We've read through the book by Dr. Henry Cloud and John Townsend. Right there. Highly suggest it. We read this through back when I was younger, and we've been studying it for quite a while. So what I wanted to do in this stream, because boundaries is so intensive, it's such a huge subject, that I decided that we would start talking about we would explain what are boundaries and why we need them. Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Yep.
So yeah, that's what we're going to do for the next however long. So okay, so what's your personal definition for boundaries for you? Because I know what mine is.
Brene Brown has really influenced me in this area, and she simply defines it as what's okay and what's not.
So we just watched. Well, we've been studying boundaries for a while, but there was a video that we just watched. It's by Brene Brown on boundaries. And I'll link it in the description when I post this to YouTube. But yeah, in it she talks about how boundaries are literally just saying, here's what's okay and here's what's not okay. It's those statements, I guess, right? And something else that I really, really enjoyed her saying, because it's hard to understand boundaries if you've never studied it or experienced it. You hear people talking about boundaries as, oh yeah, you need to set a boundary, or oh, they have boundaries, or this boundary or that boundary, but what is a boundary? So basically that's what I wanted to talk about now. That way when we dive deeper into it later, we have this foundation, I guess, of what are boundaries, and then talk a little bit about why they're important. So for me, I guess starting to study boundaries, I personally thought of them as like they were like little walls, or like little, what are those, Jersey barriers? Yeah, they're little Jersey barriers you put like, hold up. And as I've been studying it more, I realized that that definition's kind of wrong, because a Jersey barrier, whatever those things are, you can't go through it.
That would be a division.
That would be a division.
Yeah.
And another definition that Brene Brown gives for boundaries is that boundaries are not division, they're respect. They're this is what's okay and this is what's not okay. It's having that respect for yourself and others to, someone says, and to stand up and tell them what your boundaries are. Exactly. It's that respect of saying, these are my boundaries, please respect them. And seeing what other people's boundaries are, I'm going to respect yours. It's that respect. It's not putting a wall in between you and someone else, or you in this situation. It's having that respect for both yourself and others.
And you can't be vulnerable. You can't genuinely give of yourself, you can't do that without boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't, because if you don't have that self-respect and you don't have that respect for others,
You think you're emptying yourself out to help
exactly.
someone else, but then it gets attached to judgment or expectation, or you start moving into the codependent caretaking of others, and you have to start with a boundary that's healthy for you, but also that respects the other person too.
Yeah, boundaries allow you to be vulnerable. They allow you to be empathetic. They allow you to be compassionate without ending up resentful or hurt or drained.
Correct.
Or taking from someone else. So yeah. I'm like, okay, let's jump into it a bit. Another definition that I was reading the beginning of this book, Boundaries, yesterday. Yeah, I was reading the beginning of it yesterday, trying to find some ways to verbally and some metaphors to describe what boundaries are, because it's one thing to say, oh, it's respect, okay, but what are you respecting? And what they talk about in here a lot is think of yourself as your little piece of property, right? You have your little piece of property that you own, it's yours, and you're supposed to take care of it. Now, a boundary would be like the fence you have on the border of your piece of property, which is you. And it's not a wall, but it's this is mine, that's yours. I take care of my property, you take care of your property. So if someone was dumping stuff into your lot, you would set that fence maybe a little higher, and you'd be like, excuse me, this is my property, this is my perimeter, this is me, and this fence boundary is here to tell you, no, that's your space, this is my space, please don't cross it. Or how the property on the other side of the fence is not your responsibility to take care of. And I think for me, that's a huge, I think, especially for young people, because we're always taught that, oh, you have to like take care of your friends and be that loving person. Hold up. You have to take care of yourself first, and it's not your job to take care of all these other people. You have to have that boundary of, they're supposed to be taking care of themselves. I can love on them. I can show love to them, but I have to first have that boundary with them and myself going, this is my property, that's yours. I don't mind maybe reaching over the fence and handing you a couple eggs or talking to you or blah, 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 but I'm not going to go over there and mow your lawn and garden for you because that's yours and this is mine. I really liked that metaphor that they used because it's really hard to visualize boundaries and what healthy boundaries are and how it applies to your life. So really viewing it as like, I'm a piece of property. My boundaries are the fences that I have around me. And yes, there are gates. People can come in, people can come out. You can let
with permission.
Yes, exactly, with permission. Yeah. Like, you let someone in. When someone breaks in, like a thief or something, they're breaking your boundary and they're trying to take something from you. Now, if we put it into the terms of property, we're able to visualize that. Yeah, someone crossing your fence when you didn't invite them, that's a bad thing.
So an example would be if you ask someone for their opinion. You've opened the gate.
Oh my goodness. Yes! Oh!
What's your opinion on this? Or do you have some thoughts on this? But if you just offer that without being asked and invited, now you're barging through the gate into their property and you're trying to tell them what to do.
We were talking about this last stream with having healthy conversations. When someone gives you unsolicited advice that you did not ask for, or tells you what to do, or this or that, that's crossing that boundary because you didn't ask them for that. That it was not their place to share that because you didn't ask them for that. So setting that boundary of, hello, I didn't ask for your opinion. That's something that's going to help you, because if someone's giving you advice that's bad or damaging or you just don't want, that's not going to help you and therefore harm you.
And if you feel very strongly about wanting to share something with
Mm-hmm.
someone, ask permission.
Exactly.
Just say, I've got some thoughts on this.
Ask to be able to go through that gate.
Are you okay with me sharing them?
Exactly, because it goes both ways. It's not just people crossing that boundary into your property. You can very easily cross that boundary into someone else's and be like, here's my 2 cents. And I'm very guilty of that, if we're being honest. Especially when I was younger. I loved giving my opinion and my advice. And while I believed that my advice was great and wonderful and this and that, when someone didn't ask for it, that wasn't my place to share it. And I think with growing up, people start to realize that, but also if you don't have a concept of boundaries and what's your place and what's not your place, people very easily will just be like, well, here's my advice. I think we all have friends or people in our life who just do that.
Yeah, we've all done it. We've all done it.
Yeah, and we wonder why the other person is upset or you're upset when someone does that. It's because they're crossing that boundary that you're like, hey, no. So I really like that. Another way they explained boundaries in here is people will use, they were talking about how people will like use the Bible or Christianity to justify them crossing other people's boundaries or them allowing people to cross your boundaries.
Yeah, being a doormat, being, giving of themselves.
Exactly.
And, like, not advocating and standing up for themselves.
Or letting people put on you and here. And so they described it as because there's that verse that says, bear each other's burdens and lift each other up. Well, the wording in that actually is bear each other's load. Because a load is what is your moderate load that it's not weighing you down, it's not damaging to you. But a burden is when it's too much and it's going to drain you. And so the wording in there is bear your own load. And so just like going on that whole metaphor of like backpacks and stuff. If you have a
Is it metaphor or analogy?
Oh, it might have been. I don't know.
Someone look that up real quick. What's the difference between an
Let's go with
analogy
analogy.
and metaphor?
With that analogy, I think a metaphor has like a meaning that it's supposed to portray, whereas an analogy is just describing something in a different way. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Watch the comments.
So, the analogy of a backpack is. I really like, because we used to backpack and do all sorts of things. You have your backpack that you're supposed to carry. It's got your supplies. It's the right weight for you, right? But then you have these people who don't want to carry their own backpacks. And they're like, here, can you carry this? Or take this pot or this backpack, or not backpack, this sleeping bag or my tent or my food.
Or can I drink from your water bottle?
Or exactly. Like, they're either trying to take from yours, which is yours, that is your supplies for your survival.
And your health. Yep.
Exactly. Or they're trying to offload their weight and their burden onto you, which is too much for you, and therefore it will weigh you down.
Or you're looking over there and saying, oh, that backpack looks too heavy for you. Let me help you. And you're already carrying your own, so it goes both ways.
It goes both ways. Yeah, that is so true. You can either be like, oh, let me help you, and that's not your place. They're supposed to carry their own load. Wow, I didn't even think about it in that way. Yep. It really goes into that. But,
that's getting into the codependent.
That does. We'll talk about that
being
more.
A caretaker because you're trying to...
Yeah, you're trying to, like, get that fulfillment of, I'm taking care of people. And you're actually crossing boundaries, which leaves them upset at you, and this and that, blah, blah, blah. So, excuse me. So hopefully we have, like, a better, I guess, grasp on what a boundary is, which is, this is what's okay, this is what's not okay. Saying that to someone. Or just having that statement in your head of, this is what's okay, this is what's not. In certain situations, with certain people, life in general. And... Go.
I've got a comment also going back to the Bible, which I really appreciated the Boundaries book because it's very biblical. I think we get this warped view that we're supposed to be a doormat and always empty ourselves out for other people, and that's not biblical. We're told in there that our bodies, our minds, are temples, the temple of God, and our first responsibility is we take care of that. When that's healthy, then taking care of ourselves, which requires boundaries. Then we can reach out and give of ourselves to help others. But if we're not setting boundaries, it doesn't allow us to stay in our own integrity. So.
Oh yeah, what was that thing that she said?
Big
Big.
is an acronym.
Yeah.
BIG.
Oh, what is it? BIG. Uh, what is it?
What boundaries need to be in place?
What, my spelling's trash, so I can't.
What boundaries need to be in place so I can stay in my integrity?
To be able to assume the most generous about people. Because if you set that boundary with someone, you're able to stay in your integrity. You're able to, so you've set that boundary, so you're staying healthy to yourself. You're staying true to yourself, which allows you to treat people and think of people in the best light as possible, because you're not resenting them. You're not upset at them. They're not taking from you. You're not giving excessively towards them.
Well, an example of, I guess we're going over maybe into the territory of being codependent. An example of not having boundaries in place. You see, I mean, boundaries are needed for a lot of reasons. I mean, there are people who will always turn to you because they always know you're going to say yes. There are people. There are legitimate needs. I mean, legitimate needs that sometimes you have to say no to because it's going to
damage you.
You know, when you say yes to someone else, you have to say no to, you know, let's say your own sleep. Like you go and help them. Now you come home and whatever you needed to get done, you didn't get to.
Yeah.
So now you got to stay up all night and get it done, or, you know, holding space for someone who is just continuing to make, let's say, a toxic decision that's all they're doing is just dumping on you and it's stressing you out. And, you know, so, you know, there's a lot of different boundaries that need to be set. But I think where I was going with the codependency, if you see someone that's in great need and you just decide to empty yourself out to help them without setting a boundary, you start that, what do they call it? It's a triangle of it's a drama triangle?
Yeah, the drama triangle.
Where you go and you rescue someone with the expectations that they do this, this, and this to
fix it or themselves.
Right, and you're pushing them to make a decision in a certain way, and they, because you've crossed a boundary, they start backing off from you. Oh my gosh,
I have the perfect example of this.
You get very angry at them because it's like, come on, you know, you know what you need to do, just do it. And then you get so frustrated because they're not doing what you think they need to do that you start backing off. They in turn now get angry at you because you crossed a boundary. You crossed into their space and told them what they needed to do.
Yeah.
And so now you retreat. So you go from the rescue to persecuted, where you feel
because they're coming at you.
You're persecuting them.
And you're just like, I just tried to help you.
You're persecuting them, and then as you back off, they start to persecute you. So you retreat down into the other corner of the triangle, which is the victim.
Yeah.
And you're like, now you feel like you were used. You put out all this time and energy and resources, and they didn't appreciate it. But the problem was that you crossed a boundary and didn't stay in your intent. You know, you didn't. You didn't have boundaries to begin with, and it's just this vicious cycle that goes around. You know.
And I feel like I feel like I've done this so many times.
I have too. I've spent a lifetime doing this.
Because you think that you're doing the right thing by going, oh my gosh, I'm gonna, here's this all advice, this is what you do, here's what to do, but you're trying to rescue this person.
And you may have the best intentions and most of us have.
Yeah.
Best intentions. It's also kind of a,
pat on the back.
It's a good, it's a good feeling. It's a hit.
You're like,
you know,
hey, I'm helping them.
This at this time feels good.
Yeah.
But then it quickly goes downhill because, one, you're not taking care of yourself, and two, you stepped into someone else's space without being invited there.
Exactly.
So it's this vicious cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know I've experienced it so many times, and I know that I've done it to other people so many times.
I know, me too.
And it's so hard because a lot of times your natural tendency is, oh, let me go tell them what to do, without realizing that, oh, this is a boundary I'm crossing in someone else.
Right.
And which is why I think it's so important to be able to, even if you're just learning about boundaries, to be able to define them for yourself. You know, just even if you just be able to define them for yourself so you can recognize what's happening. You know, we can get into how to set them, how to deal with it, the backlash, what's healthy, what about with difficult people, with jobs, this and that. Like, we can get into that later, but just being able to identify what a boundary is and be able to have that concept in your mind, I think has tremendously helped me, because I no longer have to feel guilty or feel bad when I set that boundary with someone, saying, hey, I can't come out tonight, or hey, I'm sorry, I can't hang out, or hey, I need to stop talking so I can go to bed, or realizing that no, I can't give of this, or I can't take of this, and being able to set that boundary without taking on the guilt that people will naturally throw at you when you set a boundary with them.
Well, this is what I'm reading a book on codependency.
Let's just what's codependency?
Oh boy, it's
because we're talking about it a lot.
It's controlling other people. It's taking on other people's stuff, which involves crossing boundaries.
Yeah.
And so
I think what the definition of codependency is, what, two people depending on each other in a very unhealthy way.
Yeah, I should have had the book here in front of me so I could refer to it.
We'll talk about it more
but
later.
But it's really getting in someone else's space and making decisions and doing things for them that they need to be doing for themselves.
Exactly.
It's just not your territory.
So not only does it perpetuate them not taking care of themselves.
You're enabling them.
You're enabling them, but then you get frustrated because you're doing all the work. I remember at the very beginning of this book as well, they talk about this couple comes in and they talk about their son, how he has this problem and he's not doing anything with his life and this and that, blah blah blah. And the doctor's like, hold up, you're the ones with the problem because you're doing all the work for them. You're allowing them to do this, and then you get upset at them for not doing it when you're doing it all.
Yeah.
Like, how can they take responsibility? How can they even learn to take responsibility if you're doing it all for them? All it is enabling them to continue to make these bad decisions, not take responsibility, and it's just perpetuating your frustration with them and your resentment towards them. So, yeah. But, yeah. I just want to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Oh, also, I think we talked about this at the beginning, but making sure that I state boundaries are not walls. They might be fences, but they have gates. Walls don't allow anything in or anything out. They divide things. Boundaries are not that. They can open, let the good in, and close, keep the bad out. Or open, let the bad out in order to get the good in. Because so many people have strong boundaries, but they're keeping the good out and the bad in because that's what's comfortable to them. So it's something that you have to keep in mind, that boundaries are not exclusive to keeping your walls safe, or you're keeping yourself safe. It needs to be able to open and close. You can't just be like, this is a boundary, I'm never letting it open, I'm never blah blah blah. No, it's a give take. It's not just.
No, it's respect.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's respect. It's not a black and white statement, blah blah. It's respect. Hey, will you respect me in this? Will you respect me in that?
I just going back to, I was starting to say I'm reading a book on codependency. Sorry. I think it's called Codependent No More. Can't remember. I think Beatty is the last name of the author. She talks about we're not responsible for other people's feelings, and that's a big deal. That just hit me like a ton of bricks, because I've been raised to be a people pleaser, and because my parents grew up, that's how they were raised. So it was all about pleasing people and hustling for your worth, and that's a foreign thought to me, that I'm not responsible for someone else's feelings, because for my whole life I've been
responsible for other people's
behaving
feelings.
Based on that premise that they might be offended, or they may be mad, or they may. And in this book I'm just reading, she says you're not responsible for their anger, you're not responsible for their whatever, and that's so foreign to me to even think that, but it's freeing, because now I can set boundaries and stay in my integrity. And you can feel however you want to feel, but that's not my territory. Exactly. I'm not responsible for that. Did not know that. Just learning that now.
Well, that's interesting, because I think that when it comes to something like that, it applies. It's almost a boundary you set with someone else, but it's a boundary you set with yourself. Telling yourself, yo, you're not responsible for their feelings. Sometimes you have to say it to them as well. I'm not responsible to your feelings, but that's a really personal boundary that you set. Going, hey, I'm not responsible for how you feel, and you're not responsible for how I feel. So
it just removes so much drama.
And stress.
Drama and stress.
Because you're not worrying about what they're gonna think, how they're gonna feel, blah blah blah. It's
right. Because you're treating them with respect by setting a boundary, and you're being respectful. It comes down to being respectful to yourself and to someone else. So, if they've got a problem with it, that's their problem.
Exactly.
It's not yours, because you treated yourself and them respectfully.
And a lot of times, people without boundaries will try to make you feel like you're responsible for their feelings, and they will not respect that boundary you set with them. And they will push and push and push, going, oh, well, it's your fault, or this or that. They won't respect it.
In this book, Boundaries by Cloud and Townsend.
Get it.
Phenomenal book. Tough read for me. I can't remember how far in, and I had to put it down and literally cry for a month, because as my childhood was clarified and I started to understand, like, things made sense, and then we worked through it. I'm losing my train of thought.
That's all right.
This is not the place to lose your train of thought.
I do it all the time. What I was going to say,
It'll come to me in a minute here.
So what I was going to say, going on the train of...
I know.
Okay, you got it?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay.
Because I'll...
You need healthy people in your life. You need people who've got your back and who are working to be healthy themselves. Mm-hmm. Because when you do have to set boundaries with very toxic people, you are going to get pushback.
And
big time pushback and backlash. They're going to be very upset with you because you're not picking up their kids, or you're not doing what you have always been doing for them, mm-hmm. and now they've got to do it themselves, and they're going to be a little pissed off. And so
you need those healthy people.
You need those healthy people, and yet you really need to have a little bit of a plan, when you go to set a boundary, that you can lean into your people and have them,
hold you and
you steady and hold you
reaffirm
accountable.
You, yeah. And hold you accountable, reaffirm you that your boundaries are
right. Because what's great is that when you set that boundary, if you get some real toxic pushback,
you can sometimes second guess your boundary.
Well,
so crazy.
And it's not going to be clear cut. I mean, it's a practice. So you're mm-hmm. going to mess up. You're going to screw up. It's going to be messy, and you just have to keep practicing and practicing. But to be able to go back to your tribe that's got your back, and for them to hold space for you and to encourage you and to cheer you on and to hold you accountable also for setting those boundaries.
Yeah,
you need that. Mm-hmm. Trying to be in an island is it's extremely difficult. We need each other. We need connection.
So. Yeah, because what I was going to say is that I've gone through different experiences where I've had to set boundaries, and it immediately told me, it immediately showed me who had boundaries and were healthy and who didn't. And because I got pushback from some people and I didn't from others, and it was very eye-opening.
And the people who truly love you and care about you mm-hmm. are going to respect your boundaries.
Yeah.
That's huge. And those who don't, like you said, it really is going to be clear cut. Not that, we're all on a journey. People can change, but people need to show that by their actions.
Exactly.
And that trust needs to be earned. So
yeah. And I think we're about 30 minutes in, so I think I'm going to end it. But the thing that really hit me when we were talking about this subject, and that I want to leave with everyone, is self-worth is not a noun, it's a verb. Oh my goodness, my mouth hung open. Mom can attest to it. My mouth hung open. I was like, wait, what? Self-worth is not something it's not a noun. It's not an object that you can attain.
You don't just wake up one day and have it.
it's a practice. It's a daily practice. That's why boundaries are so important, because they're part of that practice of self-worth that you can continue, that
treating
you do.
yourself with recognize your worth is non-negotiable. So you don't negotiate that. You don't have to hustle for it. You make little choices throughout the day to be kind and compassionate to yourself, including setting boundaries, and you do it over and over and over and over and over every single day. And that is where the self-worth starts to grow. And but you have to nurture it every day by being kind to yourself throughout the entire day.
Yeah.
Healthy boundaries, and it allows you to be generous and compassionate to others, and because you're starting with yourself, being generous and compassionate to yourself.
Yeah. And it's not going to feel great at first. Setting boundaries does not feel great at first, but it gets easier with time. It's never easy.
It's not easy, but it
gets,
becomes a practice.
It becomes something you're used to.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's where I'm going to end it off. Thank you so much for joining me, Mom. This was great.
It was fun.
Loved it. I hope you guys enjoyed this as well. It will be up in about an hour and a half. And yeah, I'm really excited to continue this conversation. Hopefully I can get you back in here. And we'll talk more about boundaries, setting them, learning how to set them, and maybe some codependency, more self-worth. But something that I do want to announce to you guys is I'm deciding to only do live streams once a week on Thursday evenings, because I don't have enough time in my week in order to get everything done, I'm realizing. And as much as I absolutely adore these live streams, and I wish I could do them 2 times a week, they take about 3 to 4 hours out of my week that I need in order to practice for music or this or that. So
I'm going to set a healthy boundary.
I'm going to set a healthy boundary and say I'm only going to do these once a week. So if you have a subject or a topic or a question that you would like me and maybe Mother Teresa, to answer, please send it to me, and we will take the next week to think, talk, pray about it, and study. Research it, and we'll come back next Thursday. You can always DM me at any point in the week, and thank you so much for watching. Remember that you are loved and worthy of love. Don't let anyone tell you differently, and I'll see you next Thursday. Bye! I hope you guys really enjoyed that podcast. I loved making it. I loved live streaming with my mother. I think she has so much wisdom, and she's done so much research. So I'm really excited to share this with you guys. And as always, if it has impacted you or you pulled something away from it, please share it with your family, your friends, your dog, your neighbor, anyone at all. And be sure to tune in next Thursday for our next life conversation. If you have a subject or a question or a comment that you want to make, you can always contact me on any of the social medias linked below. And yeah. All right, guys, remember that you're loved and worthy of love. Don't let anyone tell you differently, and I'll see you next Thursday.